Alright, everybody, welcome back to yet again another video. We continue the 2022-2023 season previews today, moving into the Pittsburgh Penguins, a team who obviously lost in the first round this year, and this year was arguably the last year of this team's cup run. But what happens next? But anyways, before we get into all those interesting questions, let's take a look at last season for your Pittsburgh Penguins. They went 46, 25, and 11 for 103 points. They scored 272 goals and only let in 229, and they lost in round one in 7 games against the New York Rangers. There were many arguments you could make about that series. The fact that the refs were biased against the Rangers, or that the Pens had goaltending struggles throughout almost the whole series. And they didn't have their starting goalie until Game 7, and even that, they just couldn't win. They had injuries. The team was just it was rough. It definitely was. But they put up a good fight, and they were up 3-1, but the Rangers ended up winning the series in the end. Your leading scorer was Jake Guentzel with 40 goals, 44 assists for 84 points. Then your goaltender is Tristan Jarry with a 34, 18, and 6 record with a 2.42 goals against average. So obviously there, Jarry had a good year, like I said he was going to last season. I watched my previous preview today. Obviously he looked very good, but this team had a lot of changes when it came to the offseason. Not really any huge changes, really, but some decently big changes back in their blue line. The departures, John Marino and Mike Matheson. Then you have Evan Rodriguez, who could still come back. There is a chance that Evan Rodriguez does come back and sign with the Penguins. He's still out there in the market. And same goes for Brian Boyle. There is a possibility that he could come back as well. He does plan on playing another season. We'll see if Pittsburgh can re-sign him to a deal. But as of right now, he's not signed to a contract. And maybe he gets offered like a PTO or something. But who knows? But obviously there, some significant losses to your defense, definitely. Matheson and Marino obviously looked good. Marino looked worse than Matheson. Matheson looked better than Marino. But, they still were solid defenders, and it definitely is a blow to their top 4. But you could argue they gained them back. They acquired Drake Caggiula, Jeff Petrie, Ty Smith, Ryan Poehling, Jan Rada, and Josh Archibald. I think it's Josh Archibald. So, Caggiula, obviously probably going to be a depth or a fourth-line center, nothing more than that. Petrie, Smith, and Rada are interesting players. Obviously, Petrie has been known as a pylon for the not Pittsburgh Penguins. Well, he could be. For the Montreal Canadiens these past few years, he's been like, oh, his contract's horrible. He's a bad defenseman. Under Crosby and the Penguins, he could honestly get better. And I watched my 2021 preview. I said the same thing about Mike Matheson. I said the same thing, and he became probably the second best defender on the Pens. Arguably the best. Some even argued him the best defender on that team. And obviously, yeah, it definitely is going to be interesting to see what Petrie's going to do. But obviously there you have a young guy like Ty Smith. Smith, he just didn't really pan out the way Devils wanted him to, so obviously they dealt him for John Marino. I like it. It makes that defense a lot more younger. Smith won't have a huge role, so maybe he can play well under Pittsburgh. Jan Rada I've liked for a long time. People who have known me would know that during the Lightning's Cup runs to the Stanley Cup Finals and to win the Cup those 2 years, I definitely was a huge fan of Jan Rada and what he's done. So I definitely think that is a good addition there. And then guys like Poehling and Archibald, mainly just depth players. More or less what this team did is upgrade their defense. You could say either upgrade or downgrade. They mainly just changed their defense. They added some additional depth players. Apart from that, nothing has really changed. You look at their top 6 there, you have Jake Guentzel, Sidney Crosby, and Brian Rust. Then you have Jason Zucker, Evgeny Malkin, and Rickard Rakell. Obviously a very good top 6. Guentzel and Crosby likely going to run the same amount of points together. Very good players. Malkin there, hopefully he can stay healthy. Malkin's one of those players where hopefully he can stay healthy throughout the entire season and then obviously play till the very end. He struggled with that the past couple of years. Maybe he can try and be healthy this coming season. And then obviously there are guys like Rakell and Rust, very solid, underrated players. Rust is also underrated as well. I'm a big fan of Brian Rust. You look at their bottom 6, you have Brock McGinn, Jeff Carter, and Kasperi Kapanen. Then you have Drew O'Connor, Teddy Bluger, and Ryan Poehling. Then for some depth players, you have Danton Heinen, Drake Caggiula, and Josh Archibald. So obviously there, that bottom 6 is interesting. Carter in that third-line center role. He's getting up there in age. This could be his last season we see him play, but Definitely a big fan of Carter. Kapanen, he's the interesting one. Many players were frustrated with Kapanen's, or many people in management. Players might have been, but we don't know that. Many people in management were frustrated with Kasperi Kapanen and what he did for the Penguins this past year. And and if you guys saw me make my TikTok for the Metropolitan Division bounce backs, I put Kapanen in there as the Penguins player. He definitely needs a bounce back season, and I think maybe playing third line, he could potentially get that, but who knows? But obviously, they're a very good bottom six. Bluger, another notable player there as well. Very solid fourth line center. Overall, just good. I think you'll see some players kind of rotate in those spots, but we'll see. Your defense, you have Chris Letang and Brian Dumoulin as your first pairing. Then you have Jeff Petrie and Jan Rada as your second pairing. Then you have Marcus Pettersson and Ty Smith as your third pairing. Then you have Chad Ruedel and Mark Friedman as your additional defenders. I like that. Obviously, Letang and Dumoulin first pairing, very solid. Petrie and Rada is the interesting one. Rada hopefully can carry what he had from Tampa over to Pittsburgh. And then Petrie, I'm optimistic. I really am optimistic to see what he's going to do with Pittsburgh. Again, I think that playing under Crosby, and I've noticed this when it comes to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh players, players will come in and they'll just be bad. Heinen was one of those examples. Petrie could be one of those examples. Matheson was an example. These players are just bad when they're not on the team. But Crosby, and that's why he's such an important player to not only the Penguins but the entire NHL as a whole, he makes players better. And he makes players significantly better in all remarks, and that's something I really have noticed with Crosby. And he doesn't just make them better with just points. He makes them much better in every way of the game, and it's really cool how he does that. But overall, we'll see how that defense does. I'll just throw it in here. One of our big questions is how will the defense do? Definitely one of the questions that you want to ask. I mean, there is some players on here that say, well, three of these six guys that I have listed here are new to this team. So we will obviously see what they can do. Obviously, your goaltending tandem, if they can stay healthy, is Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith. Then you also have Dustin Tokarski as well, and I forgot to mention Louis Domingue was also a departure. I don't know why I forgot to mention him. My apologies. But obviously there, very solid goaltending tandem. Jarry and DeSmith have both looked good, and Tokarski was a solid third-string goaltender in Buffalo. He's coming over now, obviously. I forgot to add him in my departures. Jesus. Or my acquisitions. I'm forgetting everyone. But yeah, I like their goaltending tandem a lot. I don't think there's anything you really need to worry about there. The other question besides the defense thing was last year the Core's last chance? And that is the question we're going to be asking ourselves. Now, we saw so many things when it came to playoffs. Was this Pittsburgh's final year to push for a cup? Was this Crosby, Malkin, and Letang's final chance? Now that they've all signed, no. It definitely isn't the last year. They're going to be in contention. I just don't see them as a team that's going to get all the way. I think at most they could go to the second round. Maybe they surprise me. Who knows? Maybe they go out and get a deadline acquisition and surprise me. But to be honest, I look at this Pittsburgh team. They're a good team. I'm not going to deny that at all. But with the teams that are playing above them, they're kind of seem to be a level below those other teams. And I'm not trying to diss Pittsburgh in any way. For those who know me, I am a Flyers fan. I'm a Flyers native. But I'm not trying to diss Pittsburgh at all here. I just don't see them as a team that could get past the second round. And I hope I'm wrong, because I really like this core, and I really like where it's going, and I really like the young players on this team, and that is saying something since I'm a Flyers fan. You look at their point-o-meter, according to the Hockey News' fantasy guide. You have Jake Gensel leading the way with 86 points, and you have Crosby in second with 85. Then you have Brian Rust in third with 68, Malkin in fourth with 65, and Letang rounding out the top five with 56. Obviously, your core five players there. No surprise. Again, going back to Malkin, if he can stay healthy for an entire season, we shall see what he can do. Your sleeper or your bust is actually Tristan Jarry. This is interesting. Despite an aging core, the Pens will still be a competitive team, and for the second time in 3 years, Tristan Jarry garnered Vezina votes. He'll be a 28-year-old UFA next summer, so there's an added incentive to shine again. So obviously there, Jarry's a goaltender. He's a UFA. He's playing for his money now. We shall see what Jarry can do. I think he definitely will play well. He is one of the more underrated goaltenders in the league. I had him in my top 10 goaltenders. People hated it. But yeah, we'll leave it at that. Your cup odds for Pittsburgh are 25-1, so that's significant there. I think that's kind of accurate, though. I mean, they're not a team that's outrageously far out from winning a cup, but I don't think they're a team that could really get past some of the other teams in their competition. Definitely not. Some may even argue they can't even win. They won't even be able to win the Metro. Many would argue that actually with teams like the Rangers and the Hurricanes up there. But the thing that this team has that some teams don't is experience. So that is something you got to keep in mind. Under the Fenway Sports Group, which bought the Penguins in late 2021, GM Ron Hextall and President of Hockey Operations Brian Burke need their choice to stay the course of the same core of the players in the right decision. By extension, so does Coach Mike Sullivan. So obviously they extended Mike Sullivan through 2027. I think that is definitely right. Sullivan's been a great coach for this Penguins team the past couple of years, 100%, and he definitely has earned that role once again. So now we ask the question, do they make the playoffs? In 2021, I said maybe, only because of there only being 4 teams that make it, and I was an optimistic Flyers fan. In 2022, I said yes. So I'm going to say yes again. This team has the experience. They have the young players. They have the good overall core. They can definitely make the playoffs. I think that's without question. They're definitely a playoff team, 100%. And they're just a good team overall, in all honesty. But anyways, that'll do it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. For Ice Sports Late, I really do appreciate it. It'll be a while before we talk about their neighbor, the Philadelphia Flyers, but I'm glad it's a while because I don't want to talk about them with what's going on with that team. But anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.